Folks, we are live. Welcome to Dungeons, Dragons, Discourse. I am one of your hosts, Eric Tenkar. With me, as every other Friday, down
Is your other
below,
host, Glenn.
old man Grognard Glenn. And with us is now Alex. I'm probably going to screw up your last name, which is a simple name I shouldn't screw up.
Rhymes with peace.
All right. So, Alex Macris. I'm in New York. I just fucked it up, didn't I?
Yeah, it's all right. It's all
All
good.
right. So Macris.
Macris, yeah,
Macris.
rhymes with peace.
What do I want to say Macris? I am a New Yorker. That's
Yeah,
obvious.
yeah. Most people do Macris. It just, my father always said it was Macris, so that's how I pronounce it.
No, listen. My real last name is Stina. Stiene. Nobody. Three people in my life have gotten it right first.
I thought it was Steiny.
Exactly. Everybody looks at it and they go Steiny, Stein, Stain. So usually I have a medical appointment or some other office. I'm always going, yeah, Eric Stein. Because because their eyes don't bother to actually read what's in front of them. They don't bother.
No.
So it's just the easiest.
Yeah, I get a lot of Marcus. They switch the C and the R. I get a lot of Alexander Marcus, yeah.
Well, especially they're a Babylon 5 fan, I can understand why. But
Sure. Yeah. It's a good name, actually, Alexander Marcus.
Yeah, there you go. All right, my cat's giving me back my desk. Thank you. She's been especially.
Oh, Rob. Rob's in the house.
Oh, I saw that. Yeah, with my son being around for the last 5 days, she gets jealous of him because she's like, "Oh, you're another child. They care about you." Because she stalks him like an obsession. But Alex, it's good to have you here. It's good to see you. I've been following your work since the early days, Adventurer Conqueror King System, ACKS. I have been a fan of it since I first found the rules. Ran the rules for a while in my return to behind the screen.
Nice.
Probably right after it came out on Kickstarter. I ran it because they are very familiar. They feel like BX, but they feel like BX as if BX was done today. If that makes any sense. I mean,
it does, yeah.
It's
That's
like
good.
you can have you don't need racist class, but you can have classes that are based upon your race,
right?
Which I thought was a great way to handle that because it really made things feel unique, which most of the retro clones were not really doing. They were reinventing BX, but it was BX, or they were coming back and giving us another white box, but it felt like, which is great. Gave me a white box that I could easily reference to as opposed to my OCE, which gives me OCE these days because I can't make heads or tails of how it's organized.
Yeah, absolutely. Like just easier reference is a big win for a lot of folks.
But I think the first supplement for ACKS was the additional classes.
Yeah, the player's companion with the classification
rules. Which I went crazy with because you could design your own classes and they were balanced. Thank you, Joe. And Joe and Rob, you guys both got mentioned pre-show, by the way, with Alex and I. You guys both came up, but it was a whole. It was interesting. You were able to give us a method that was balanced without being overly obnoxious and painful to use. And that's rare. But that seems to be a hallmark of what you do. Like even Domains of War is something that gives you a different level of play without beating you over the head. You don't. I try. You give crunch without it feeling like it's crunch. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, as a game master or player, I'm super impatient, so I don't like when the game plays slow. And a lot of times, too much crunch makes the game play slow. But I don't mind putting in tons of hours to prep beforehand. So the way I approach all my game designs is I do all the work beforehand to make it all realistic and plausible and crunched up. And then that way, when you sit down and you play it, it's much easier to do. So like the class creation system, we reverse engineered a system based on the BX classes and then built it forward, and now it's just plug and play.
Oh, it was a beautiful thing. And I'm thinking it's funny now because we had this D&D summit on Monday, and one of the things that got
Did you go to it? Summit?
I was. Oh, they're not going to invite me. Have you seen the comments I've made about Wizards of the Coast, whether it's been here or on the blog?
I have.
I am not an influencer that can be influenced in their favor, but one of the things that came out of that, as I was reading and watching videos, is that they admitted that the CR rating for encounters that is published is not the internal one that is actually used. In other words, they gave you a broken method of doing something.
Really?
But they didn't want third parties to actually be able to effectively use it. There's a quote out there. I'll have to find it for later.
Wow.
That because they put it in like corporate speak as to why they did it, but it basically comes out to they didn't want third-party publishers being able to effectively be balanced. But if you're an old school gamer, you wouldn't notice a difference.
I know. I was like, jokes on them. We don't care.
Yeah, but if you are a third-party publisher, and I've talked to third-party publishers after that came out, and they're like, no wonder it was always so hard to get the shit to work. Wow. Didn't always seem to. It's like, well, yeah, apparently they intentionally borked it because, wow. If your competition consistently writes better material than your quote official material, right, you've got to find a way to tip the scales, and you tip the scales by putting a little break on something, and
damn,
screwing people.
Well, I will say this: Wizards of the Coast has done a great job at shooting themselves in the foot and finding great ways to do bad PR, and when the bad PR comes out, then double down on bad PR. Like, hey, let's do a publicity tour and throw somebody out who's going to keep on stepping on their personal parts throughout the tour as they say stupid stuff that shouldn't be said in public.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. My co-designer on Adventurer Conqueror King System, one of my co-designers is Greg Tito. And Greg works in PR for Wizards of the Coast now. And Greg's a smart guy who loves Dungeons and Dragons, right? I just imagine he has to just be stabbing himself in the face with a knife every day at the decisions that are coming down out of corporate.
And that's it too. I mean, listen, I think we've all been in positions where we know how things should play out and what we should do. And there's always somebody of a higher rank, a higher title, more important to go, fuck that shit. I know exactly how we play this out.
Yeah.
And I know exactly how it's going to play out if you do what you want to do. But there you go. I mean, that's what we're seeing. Joe wants to know if you've ever heard from Tavis Allison.
Yeah, last I chatted with Tavis was a bit after his divorce. He had started dating a new woman. He was talking about moving to Mexico. Seemed to be in good shape.
Oh, okay.
He just got he kind of got promoted in his career, and in between changing family conditions and more work, he didn't have as much time for the hobby.
Well, I remember he was having the kid, and then he became like a grant writer for the hospital, and I remember I actually knew somebody who was a grant writer, and it's one of those positions that goes from 0 to 100 in a moment.
Yeah.
What's needed.
So after the grant writing, so he was grant writing at the same at Columbia actually, where his wife was a teacher, I believe. And then they had a divorce, and they had to figure out custody, and it all got very complex in his life. So I think it's hard to put in the hours to be like a prominent OSR designer when you're dealing with full-time career and family.
Yeah, and family issues. I mean, listen, I have enough time constraints on me, and I'm retired.
Yeah.
And to be able to put up a video a day and put up a blog post a day, I guess, according to Wizards of the Coast, I would be considered a content creator. It's a new definition to me as to what a content creator is. This is media. This isn't content.
We're creating content right now. This is us. Content.
Yeah, not content that's going to help anybody in their game, though. Yes, Rob. I'm sure it was Joe's fault. Joe chased him out of the hobby. Trying to catch up here. The licensed Conan RPG should have used ACKS for its rules. Maybe so.
I would love that. I actually, a lot of the Conan stuff is now in the public domain. Like Chuck Dixon is doing Conan stories under the brand name Chuck Dixon's Conan. I had really thought about, would it be worthwhile assembling all of the public domain Conan stories and then doing, ACKS Hyborian edition or something.
Why not?
Yeah. Well, because the why not would be because
time
might sue me.
Oh,
even if I have my rights.
Oh, it's true. Yeah, it's the same thing with like a lot of the Cthulhu mythos stuff now, slowly leaking out into the public domain.
Yeah.
It's like, well, yeah, but there's certain parts you can't touch.
Yeah, I used to do audiobooks, and I do the Cthulhu thing, and I had to be really careful which ones I picked because Lovecraft kind of straddles the line on copyright. Some of it is public domain, some of it isn't. Depends on what the year is, all that kind of stuff. Same thing with Conan. I had some people who wanted to do Conan audio plays, and they were going to use the public domain ones, and they got a C&D from the Howard estate saying, yes, you can use those stories, but we copyrighted the character, which I think is a weasel move, but
right. And it's a big open question because there's a lot of stuff like Superman and Batman are all heading towards end of copyright.
Yeah.
It's like if they rule that the character remains copyrighted because he's still in active use, then they basically destroyed the public domain. Like nothing will ever go into the public domain.
That's right. The whole Mickey Mouse argument.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see. But yeah, I've thought about it. I love the Conan setting. It was hugely, when I was a kid, I had those, what was it, the Lancet or Ace paperback books. And it was like Conan the Adventurer, Conan the Explorer, Conan the Usurper. That was like the inspiration for the name of the ACKS, actually.
Oh, wow. See, like,
really?
For me, my Conan stuff was like the, was it King Conan and then like the Roy Thomas Savage Sword and stuff like that?
Yeah, the comics, yeah.
Yeah, because
I've got some of those Marvels. Yeah, Savage Sword of Conan, all that.
Yeah, for some reason King Conan was just because King Conan went off on this different type of Conan type of story. It really appealed to me because like also it meant that my friends that were big Conan fans couldn't like quote me stuff going, well, it's not following the book. Hey, King Conan follows no book. It's its own.
Right.
It's its own storyline. But I got a question before we delve into your current Kickstarter. I do have a question for you because we've already kind of touched on it. Adventurer Conqueror King System. When you decided to come up with this and publish what was essentially, it's not a rewrite of BX. It's an expansion of BX.
Yeah.
And like I said, to me, it's BX. If BX was written today, what gave you the idea? Number one, and number two, this is just me knowing so many publishers. How did you pretty much come out of pretty much nowhere and have such an amazingly high quality of product, which is a rarity even today for somebody coming up with it? I mean, nobody looks at ACKS and goes through it and not to throw stones at anybody, but Castles and Crusades, I love the system. I love the books. I don't know, man. I think up until like 5th printing, you could probably count typos on every page. I mean, you guys put together an amazing product right out of the box, and I'm just curious.
So so in terms of why did I do it? So my wife became very chronically ill around 2008, and so I had to be at home a lot more often than I used to be to make sure I was around for her.
Right.
So I started running. An old school, D&D campaign for my buddies, and they would just come over, and so we could hang out at my house in case she needed me. And as I was, and I used BX because I had played BX as a kid, and I loved that. But as I was going through it, I kept expanding it and adding a house rule here and adding a house rule here until eventually, like, my house rules document was bigger than BX. And my wife was like, honey, if you're just gonna be sitting around at home while I'm sleeping, why don't you write this up and publish it? I said, that's a good idea. And around that time, Greg Tito was working for me at The Escapist. He was a managing editor at The Escapist. Tavis was a buddy I knew through blogging. And so the idea was basically, I would do the design, Tito would do the editing, and Tavis would do the marketing. Although Tavis also contributed some really cool game design concepts too. And then when it came time to lay it out, and I was able to tap into The Escapist, which was the company I was running at the time. And so I had graphic designers, and I had illustrators, and I had copy editors on my payroll. And I basically was like, hey guys, please work on this. And they were playing. They were the guys that had played in the campaign with me.
Right.
So for them, it was pretty fun because they, got to instead of working on normal boring stuff at work, they got to work on that for a bit, and they got to see their names in print and stuff. So that's how I did it. I just was in a really advantageous position, sort of professionally, in the game industry at the time, and then I happened to have lots of downtime at home.
That works.
I'm gonna have to check this system out. This is one of those systems where I hear a lot about it. I hear how good it is, and I keep saying, I gotta look at it. And I never get around to looking at it.
Well, we're working on a second. I'm working on a second edition now called ACKS Imperial Imprint. So if you wait a few months, or if you want, I can even privately send you guys the draft document of the.
What was I can wait. But what was the name of it again? ACKS what?
Imperial Imprint. So it's ACKS 2.
Oh, okay. ACKS 2. I like that.
I didn't want to call it like second edition because it's not quite a second edition. It's more like a 1.5, and I wanted it to have little Roman numerals. So ACKS Imperial Imprint.
Cool. You sent me some previews earlier this year, and I was looking at them and going, "Damn, this looks good."
Yeah, it's gotten even further since then, and now I'm into the second edition Monster Manual and the second edition Judge's Journal. So.
Oh, all right. This is going to be fun stuff. I mean, ACKS is again. If you like BX, dare I say, if you're comfortable with Labyrinth Lord, ACKS is what you see there, but with enough options which don't overwhelm you. I mean, you can just go into and go, well, I want to play an elf. All right, well here's your elf classes. All right, you don't need to know what every class in the book does.
Right.
Just know figure out what race you're looking to play, and then look at the options that fall under it. And the part of the problem with regular vanilla D&D is that every fighter is kind of like every fighter.
Yeah.
Everybody has to you gotta take the long sword in AD&D because all the magic swords are long swords, 70%, and you got it. Yeah. They all look the same. Whereas with ACKS, they don't. And that's something that while still feeling familiar, while still feeling like the game system or the glove that you've put on in the past. So ACKS holds a special place for me. It really does.
Speaking of, I should show you. Actually, this will be a first ever reveal. So no one else has seen this yet. But so this is.
Hold on a second.
I just got this today. It's the proof of Buy This ACKS.
Nice.
Which is our book on dwarves. It's full color. You can see that's literally the proof sign-off sheet on it. So it's full color. And it's just
nice,
absolutely beautiful on the inside.
Yeah.
It's got art on basically art tables on tons of the pages. We got
Very nice.
There's a dwarven automaton.
Oh, nice.
We got. Let's see. Here's an example. This is one of my favorites. This is the Exterminant. It's a dwarven automaton that looks like an ogre that they send into the Beastman layers.
Oh, nice. Of course, I happen to like dwarves a lot, so this is right up my alley.
Yeah, that was a really fun book to write. I never liked dwarves initially, and by the time I had finished the book, I loved dwarves, and I considered myself an honorary dwarf.
There you go. All right, now how? Oh, there we go. Exit soul.
Oh,
Glenn, you're looking special.
yeah, Glenn has turned into a flag.
Yes, or something.
Finish now.
Okay. So now I do know we have a comment wanting to know, is that what's currently being kickstarted? No, this is what is currently being kickstarted.
Yes.
Ascendant Platinum Edition. Now, by the way, I'm going to give you from the first edition or first print of Ascendant. I am not much of a supers gamer. I know people that love Villains and Vigilantes. I hated it as my teenage gamer. And Marvel superheroes left me flat, and DC was too complicated. And Ascendant seems to hit that spot that is not well, then again, it's Alex. He knows how to give you full rules, but they don't feel crunchy because he's done away with most of the crunch on the back end. So he's giving you what you need. So like I mentioned, I probably read through about 2/3 of it before I got misplaced and lost behind my never-ending game collection, which I just dug out literally yesterday as I was trying to set up my new home internet, which didn't work anyway. But in any case, it's from Alex. I expect something good, but the fact that it's supers, in my case, usually means I'm going to be left flat. This is something that I'm actually reading through. I don't read through rule books, by the way, folks. I skim them, I flip, but Ascendant is good. So I have to back the Platinum Edition myself. So.
Thanks for the kind words. This is this is Ascendant. So it's definitely not like a rules light game.
No,
but it's a game where once you master the core mechanic, everything else flows really fast from there. So, and that was I'm still astonished at how well Ascendant has done because, I was like, I'm going to go back and make a chart-based logarithmic RPG like they had in the 1980s. And then I'm going to combine it with like hypersexualized 1990s Image Comics art style. Because that's the exact opposite of what the market wants. And, everyone else is creating like these very fluffy rules light superhero games that are based on narrative, and all the art is like, the Cal art comic book style that's being done or anime style. And, and I'm just sizzling in with, white male and red, white, and blue on the front cover. Oh my God. But it did great. It was the best selling product I had in terms of it's hitting the ranks to platinum and selling out the entire first print run. Jason says, what is the system? So it has its own system. It's its own unique system called the supermetric system.
Yeah, I mean, I've looked at well over a dozen superhero or supers RPGs, and for the most part, I always find them lacking. They're either lacking because they are a game like, I don't know, like Phase Rip, the old Marvel superhero system, where Yeah, sure, you can play like Hawkeye, but why would you want to?
Right.
You know, and Ascendant for me felt like it balanced the imbalances better. I think I'm not sure if I'm phasing that, if my terminology is correct, but it just seemed to have a better feel, at least a better feel for what I wanted out of a superhero game as opposed to what I've generally found. I could be wrong, but
Yeah. Well, I think designing supers is probably the most challenging genre to be in because it's as if every character is a 20th level wizard, right? Like they
right,
all have so many things they can do. And, but because of that, it also is a really great area to design in because you can have, endless numbers of interesting characters that all have their own niche protection. And, so the question is, how do you then model that in a game? And a lot of the modern superhero games have basically shrugged their shoulders and like, we're not going to model it at all. We're just gonna give the judge some tools, the GM some tools to just narrate a story set in a comic book world. And that's a perfectly plausible way to design a game. You can have a good time, but it's just not the kind of game I like to design. Like the Margaret Weiss Marvel game, for instance, all of the powers were functionally the same. Like you could use flight to do damage, or you could use lightning bolt to do damage, and you just had to like narrate how you used flight to hurt the other guy by ramming him or whatever. And then it was just a dice pool based on how big your die was. Now, I don't really like games like that. Like I like very tightly associated mechanics where what I'm rolling on the table is also what's happening in the world, and the narrative is emergent from that. So what I realized was that if I went back and looked at DC Heroes and I took their original idea of using logarithms to scale up so that
mm-hmm.
2 is twice as good as 1, 3 is twice as good as 2, etc. If I took that, but then I combined it with the simplicity of phase rips color-coded tables for results, and I built the logarithmic results into the colors, I could create a system where you could have a one roll, look at a chart, and know what happened at essentially infinite scale up or down to any power level. So everything you can do with one roll, it's always my acting value versus the difficulty value. Look at the chart, roll the dice. What's your color? And that was like the key insight that made the game possible.
That's pretty cool. Again, it when I was reading the rules, I was like, it started to click, and it felt right. Which a lot of times, most of my listen fantasy games, you can give me crappy rules, and I'm sure that I will in the course of running it, I will fill in the blanks because I'm used to running a D&D like system. I can usually
Right.
figure out a rule for that. I don't run super, so I need things to kind of work out of the box, and Ascendant works out of the box.
Yeah, that was a big effort for me. Supers are supposed to be able to stop an earthquake, save a city from a tsunami, deactivate a bomb. But then the game never gives you any rules to that. So as the GM of a supers game, you're like, well, I guess I'm just going to do another beat 'em up with a super villain because I don't really have any other game mechanics to work from, and I don't want to sit here and make everything up. So in Ascendant, if you go through, there's a whole section on saving the day that's got everything from defusing a bomb to a hostage negotiation to diverting an asteroid, right? We've got, interviewing witnesses, investigating crime scenes. It's all in there. It all uses the same system. So, Jason, should I answer this question from Jason?
Yeah.
All right. So I was actually a child prodigy of tabletop gaming. I learned how to play when I was 4 years old, and I was running games at age 7. By 14, I had written and published some adventures for the RPGA Association that were being run at conventions. And then at age 16, R. Talsorian Games had me working their booth at Gen Con, running official Cyberpunk 2020 and Dreamworld games for Mike Pondsmith. I published some articles in Interface Magazine in high school. And then I went to college, and I was at West Point and then law school, and I just didn't have a lot of time for any of that. And so it all kind of got put on the back burner for many years until, sort of like, as I said, 2008, I was running it, and my wife was like, "You're really good at this. You should write this out." And so I did. So, so I guess it's kind of like, I don't know, like as a kid who's like, captain of the chess club, chess prodigy, then sort of steps away and then comes back as an adult and writes a book on chess. It's kind of similar.
Interesting. I never heard the history about chess. Pretty cool.
I mean, yeah, I had to have something to get me through my miserable childhood because I was like a wounded gazelle in the Serengeti. The bullies could like smell me from like a mile away and start circling.
Yeah, listen, that was the great thing when you found games, you found others like you. It's like, wait a second, it isn't just it's the people on the audio video team and it's Owls, the guys that take the computer club.
Yep.
Yeah, not necessarily the most academic. I will say that a lot of us, our grades sucked because it required effort in high school as opposed to junior high school to actually
right
do it, pass your class. Way before you could coast and read all your Fritz Lieber and other books as opposed to actually studying a book within a book.
Funny story there. So my best friend Brian Rosati was his name. Is his name. He's still alive. So Brian and I are super tight. We're constantly playing Dungeons and Dragons and Cyberpunk together. And but Brian is super bored at school. Doesn't pay attention, doesn't care. Would rather work on games or cars or things like that. But he's always hanging out with me. And come yearbook time, he just comes and rolls with me over to the National Honor Society. And so there, and just everyone assumes Brian is on the Natural Honor Society because of course he is. And so, there's him with his C grade average in the yearbook, smiling as being part of that. It just was we're still friends 30 years later, right? Like that's a gaming friend that's for life. It's just awesome.
Oh God. I mean, in my school, New York State used to do Regent scholarships if you got a good SAT score. It was worth like $250 a year back in the 80s. And my high school had a senior class of 1,100, a graduating class of 700, which already tells you the strength of the students. And I believe 21 of those graduating students got Regent scholarships, including myself and one of my close gaming friends at the time, Andrew. So we get called, we get brought down to this party in the principal's office, and every kid there is Asian, except for me and Andrew. So the principal is saying hi to everybody, and he comes over to me and Andrew. I give him my name. He goes, that name's familiar. I'm like, yeah, my mother's the treasurer on the PTA. He goes, oh, okay. Well, what's your grade point average? And he's hearing kids with 98.7, 99. Yeah. And I'm like, 80.12. And he looks at me. And he's like, he turns to Andrew. Andrew, with a betting eye, 75, but flat. He promptly walked away from us and did not come back for the next 2 hours.
But I will say this, that's the beauty of standardized tests, is that they can find the people who were too bored to get good grades, but can test well and give them a chance. So, hey, we're looking at my kicks. Do we want to watch the trailer? It's a cool little trailer.
Oh, hold on a second. We can do that. Hold on.
America needed heroes. Altark answered the call. Ascendant is the super-powered role-playing game of infinite possibilities. Crowdfunded in April 2020, launching in January 2022 on Drive-Thru RPG. Ascendant became a #1 bestseller and hit platinum tier within weeks, and sold out within a month of release. Now, with Ascendant Platinum Edition, we're debuting a revised second printing of the core rules, the game's first official source book, and the Ascendant universe's premier graphic novel, Ascendant: Star-Spangled Squadron. This action-packed epic chronicles the appearance of the world's first costume champions. Ascendant Rogues Gallery is the first sourcebook for the Ascendant role-playing game. Ascendant is more than just a role-playing game. It's a new superhero universe. Ascendant Platinum Edition. Crowdfunding now on Kickstarter. Who will you become when you ascend? Are you ready to pledge? Choose your power level.
Netflix, if you're watching, call me.
That was pretty good. I got to admit, because most of the time I watch videos on Kickstarters, and I talk to way too many people that do Kickstarters, and I always hear the argument, I was told that if you don't do a video, you're not going to do well on your Kickstarter. And I always come back, if you're not going to do a good video, don't do a video.
Yeah.
You know, that was a spot on video. That was well done.
Yeah, I mean, I hired somebody to make that. I just set aside some budget from the last Kickstarter to use for marketing of the new Kickstarter. Like, I don't have video editing skills anywhere near that, nor do I have an incredibly deep voice.
Well, no, that was a great movie voice.
But I think it does seem to move the needle in terms of, you know, getting new people to check it out if they see a cool video. The previous videos I've done have just been like me on my couch talking about the game, and I don't know if those move the needle very much.
So long as you're not wearing dirty white socks. Honest to God, there was a video early on in my Kickstarter watching days where guy was talking about his project. I believe it was a game, and he's got his dirty white socks up on the coffee table, and you could see the change on the soles of the feet front to like by his ankles. So you could see the socks were dirty. And it's just like, dude, why would you think that would sell anything?
Yeah, geez.
Yeah. Well, then again, Kickstarter's come a long way now too. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and it's honestly, it's much harder now than it was when I started. Like when we did ACKS, if you go back, you look at our first one, like there's barely a video, there's barely any art. We're just like, hey, we're some dudes, we're making a game. You know, and nowadays you're up against companies that spend $20,000 to set up their Kickstarter so that they can make 250,000 or $1 million. It's much more competitive and difficult.
Look at Shadow Dark. You know, I mean, what, 1.3 million? Like,
I try not to look at it; it hurts too much.
You know, her timing was impeccable. She struck when the iron was hot. You had the OGL fiasco, like we mentioned earlier, Wizards of the Coast, unforced fouls. That's what always blows my mind. Anything that Wizards of the Coast has done isn't because somebody backed them into a corner. It's because Wizards of the Coast thought they knew best, and this is the crap that comes from it. But it also shows you that when you're that foolish with your perceived, I don't know, control or influence over the hobby, how quickly it will turn on you.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. They just grossly miscalculated the response they would get. All I can fathom is that in their mind, the tabletop aspect of it was dying. Everyone wanted virtual tabletop, and they were going to be delivering an incredible virtual tabletop experience, and that was what would matter to people. And I think they just, you know, they're all video game executives over there now, right? Like they're all Microsoft, and I think they functionally don't grok the tabletop vibe at all. Like, did you see that demo they were doing where like everybody's sitting in a computer, sitting on a table, but they're all sitting in computers? Like, really? Is that what we're coming to?
Alienware computers, $3,000 computers, all sitting at a great big boardroom desk with a map and dice on the table, but they're rolling the dice on their computers.
Yeah. I mean, like, if that's the future that they have for us, that's not a future I'm interested in, you know?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, who you're not going to go to a convention and sit, I don't know, 6 laptops on a table. You're not going to have, first off, you you have no outlets to plug into, and you
Right.
have shitty hotel wireless or shitty convention wireless. You're not going to be able to play those games that way, and they're not meant to be played that way.
Right.
And I still enjoy telling the story of me and Roll20 early on when I was, putting up 3 or 4 blog posts a day and occasionally doing videos. Roll20, this is probably a year or two after they had kickstarted and they were gathering steam, and I used to blog about how I used Roll20 to run my game sessions, and they wanted me to record a session and post it on YouTube. And they were all excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I told them, I go, listen, just so you understand, and Joe the lawyer understands this, and Rob, they're in they're my regular gaming group. I said, if I did this, I'd probably have to cut out about 4/5 of the conversation going on for either being irrelevant, politically incorrect, or just offensive to people who don't know the inside jokes. I go, and I don't use tokens. All I use is fog of war, and I point at the map. I don't even use handouts or character sheets. Everybody has their own character sheet. But yeah, if you're really interested, I'll do it. And I got no answer.
Yeah, I bet
it wasn't even like a thank you, but no. It was just step away and we'll pretend that we never reached out to this guy.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But I mean, I am a minimalist when it comes to me using a VTT. I use Roll20 because I backed the Kickstarter lifetime, lifetime benefits or whatever for being a pro. But I'm sure that if I come into gaming now, I'd be using like, I don't know, Owlbear Rodeo or Foundry or something like that.
Yeah, I've been using Foundry for ACKS. We have an ACKS module build for it, and I'm actually going to be starting an ACKS actual play live stream show next week. Well, I don't know if I'm going to live stream it or if I'll record it. I'll probably record it because just for bandwidth reasons. But I've got together actually my old West Point War Games Club buddies. From 25 years ago, and so everyone is going to be coming together again online to play. We haven't played together in decades, so it should be pretty fun. That
is awesome. I get together with my gaming group from high school and college. We stayed together up until 97 when I got out of the academy. And my days off went from Saturday, Sunday to Wednesday, Thursday.
Right.
We stopped, but we'd always get together a couple times during the year just to socialize. And then we didn't do that for the millennium. And then we didn't do that in 2001. And we lost a core member of our group in 2001 in the towers. So when Paul passed, then we're like, all right, every spring around his birthday, we got to get together and we've been doing it now every year except for the year of the vid.
That's awesome.
So usually I'm the one that's like, all right, guys, I use my drive-through affiliate money, so everybody gets a game book. It's like,
that's awesome.
So they build up a game book collection. We hang out, we drink, watch stupid videos, talk gaming, go out to eat. But you got to keep that connection. For a number of years, we were playing EverQuest and City of Heroes and Anarchy Online, but there's something special about tabletop RPGs.
For sure. So, my friend Mike told me this really interesting sort of factoid, is that apparently men in modern society, like dudes our age or a bit younger, have a lot of trouble maintaining friendships because men tend to be workaholic or more career focused or just, purpose driven. And they tend not to just be like, oh, let's just hang out with Bob and we'll just shoot the shit. Like, after a certain age, we kind of don't do that. And so it turns out that the only men that have regular friendships are those that have like some sort of social function that they mandate that they have to go to. So like the bowling league, the little league team, or the D&D group. So it turns out that like being part of a Dungeons and Dragons group or RPG group or whatever game you want to play ends up being like this really great way for men to stay bonded with their male friends when the rest of America is like, those social ties are all fraying. So, and then interesting enough, the guy that told me that story is actually the guy who hosts the weekly game that I play in. He has his whole basement of his house is set up with a giant table, and he keeps munchies and everything for us. And that's like that's his way of making sure all of us stay friends and are always hanging out.
But that makes a lot of sense, honestly, because, like, as an adult, you don't make many friends. I try to explain this to my son when he was younger, and I was like, listen, you're going to find that you make a lot of friends when you're a kid, and then those friends that you make as a kid, you may keep one or two as an adult, and then you're going to probably make one or two friends in college or in your 20s, and you may keep them. I mean, as a full-fledged adult, I probably made 3 or 4 real friends as an adult. People that that I should say. I should qualify that aren't part of the gaming community. I've made friends in the gaming community that I have closer friendships with than with people that I live a couple blocks from that I've known for 30 years.
Yep.
Because in the gaming community, again, it's the shared hobby that we're talking about, but then you get to know people beyond the hobby, which you get to make connections with people beyond the hobby. You get to hear what's going on in their life beyond just Facebook. Like when this OGL fiasco went down, it was a joke with me and Rach, but honestly, I think I got, I don't know, 2 to 3 hours of sleep for that first week every night because I was fielding phone calls and PMs and Discord calls from friends throughout the industry that I'm good friends with, and I normally would have a phone conversation with once every week or two. But people were really in a position, people who had made decisions that, hey, listen, I already have a plan. In February, I'm going to quit my quote real job, and I'm going to become a full-fledged game designer. All right, well, then that shit happens, and you're like,
yeah,
or people that are, involved in larger third-party publishers who saw their income coming to nothing. And I mean, again, I have a pension. So what I get to do, this is a hobby for me. It doesn't drive, I don't have to make monetary decisions based upon this.
Right.
But for those that gaming is their monetary decisions, it was a lot.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I lost sleep over it because I was looking at essentially the entire ACKS catalog being erased, right? Like their initial plan was to deauthorize the OGL. And you're just like, well, I guess that's it then.
Yeah.
So it was scary times.
Well, no, we never. 1.1 was not a real OGL. It was never. It said draft on it. Remember? So that was never really meant to be taken seriously. That was just.
It's all lies.
I know. I never really understood gaslighting to the full extent until the OGL fiasco.
Right.
Like,
that was a master class in gaslighting.
I'm like, and then it continued with let's let Kyle get out there and sacrifice himself in front of the gods of gaming.
Yeah.
That was another horror of gaslighting just because they didn't give him the answers. So the guy's like, I'll wing it. Oh, dude, don't wing it, man.
Brutal.
God. So Ascendant has another 6 days to go. I should.
Yeah. I think it'll be. We're in the evening of day 6, and then we got 5 days left. And I did a 45-day campaign this time. It's my first one. Figured see if the extra 15 days makes a difference. So essentially, what happened is my plan was to do Ascendant Rogues Gallery as the second Kickstarter for Ascendant. But I sold out of the core rulebook way faster than I expected. And so then I thought to myself, well, how do I sell a source book when you can't even buy the core rulebook? Like, that's crazy. So I commissioned a second printing of the core rulebook and then presented it as Ascendant Platinum Edition, kind of to celebrate hitting Platinum's bestseller status. And then in the interim, I had done a small Indiegogo for Ascendant Star Spangled Squadron, the graphic novel, and so then I bundled everything together. So you could come in and just buy the core rulebook if you don't have that and have the very latest core rulebook. You could buy the core rulebook and the source book and not worry about the comic book, which is, optional if you're playing the game, or you could just buy the comic book and or buy the comic book and Ascendant Rogues Gallery and keep using your first edition Ascendant. Everyone who bought the original Ascendant rulebook already got an updated PDF with all the errata corrections as well as an errata document. So they don't need to rebuy the book. It's a second printing, not a second edition.
Okay.
I want to make sure I'm clear on that, because I definitely am not expecting like, hey, you just gave me $60 and now you need to do it again. You don't. It's
unless you're one of those completists out there that you need everything.
Yeah, unless you're a completist or like an exceptionally wealthy international billionaire who just really loves the games.
No. But now, let's be honest. Most people who are GMs are completists.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Yeah. But we're using the original rule books at my table playing Ascendant. It's no problem. Like it's mostly like it's like you talked about. How there's no typos and things. Few typos and things in our products. Like it's like a pride thing, right? Like if you're going to do a second printing, like fix the errata. Don't reprint the errors.
No, you got to stamp those bugs out real quickly. But I love the genre. I collected comic books as a kid. I'll be the first person when Humble Bundle puts up like an Image Comics bundle. It's like, oh yeah, I haven't bought Image comic books since the 90s. Oh, I can grab a bunch to read on my iPad now.
Yeah.
So I love everything on whether it's The Boys or even watching the Marvel stuff. Most of the Marvel stuff. Yeah. There's some of the series I had to tap out. Not going to go into why, but some of them were. Some of the later ones. Sorry. I like a little bit of humor. I just don't need to be told when to laugh. Is that?
Yeah, like the thing with superheroes is, to me, it's like an innately silly kind of genre, but in order to be enjoyable, it has to take itself seriously. We can laugh at it because the situations are so outrageous, but when it starts to laugh at itself, it just becomes campy, and I don't find that fun. So like, the Ascendant setting has a lot of really funny stuff in it, but within the world, everyone is taking themselves seriously. But like I have a blind deaf assassin called Helen Killer, and I find that hilarious.
I like that. I liked it a lot, actually. It's weird. I mean, something like Deadpool. Deadpool works because I think the actor is can make it work. If you had somebody else in that role, it wouldn't work as it does. Guardians of the Galaxy has certainly an amount of humor to it, but it still keeps it where where the action is what's being sold. Some of the recent Marvel stuff is kind of like, I used to be excited for the next Marvel movie to come out and hit.
Me too.
And it's like yeah. Now I will say though, I did see the D&D movie in the theaters.
How was it? I haven't seen it.
So despite what Greg Gillespie, the man who has not seen the movie, says, you were not hit over the head with any message. Which, when we left the theater, my wife was like, "We just saw a 2023 movie, and they didn't give us a message." I'm like,
I mean, that's actually kind of profound, yeah.
Yeah, even she was like, I can't believe that. Rach is not a gamer by upbringing, but she does game at conventions and has a good time. But she games like a social worker. She's always trying to like analyze shit. But she enjoyed the movie. It had a little humor. It had action. It had a storyline. You didn't have to know Forgotten Realms lore or any of that stuff. But if you did, it was like little Easter eggs for you.
Yeah.
I mean, now maybe I graded it a bit on a curve because of the horrible movies that preceded it. So I would give it like a 4 stars out of 5. Enjoyable. Would I go back to watch it again in the theater? If I could get a matinee pricing, I'd go back. I saw it in the Amazon preview weekend.
So how would you stack it up to like the great fantasy movies like Excalibur or Fellowship of the Ring?
Listen, nothing comes close to the first 3 Lord of the Ring movies.
Yeah.
Let's not count The Hobbit because. Here, I'll put it this way: I enjoyed it more than I enjoyed the last Hobbit movie.
Okay, that's actually like a really good setting point, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
The last Hobbit movie was kind of like, okay. I think we left the book behind in the last movie, and I'm not quite sure where we are now.
Yeah.
The characters, like the how they did the Paladin, was the best portrayal of a Paladin I could have ever have asked for in a movie.
Really?
I really thought it was played very well. The character wasn't lawful stupid, but he was definitely lawful, and he was probably the best pure fighter in the whole cast. Like his fight scene was spot on, amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I thought that his character was, to me, one of the highlights of it. I've heard people complain. I was like, druids can't turn into owlbears. Well, first off, I don't play 5e, so maybe they can turn into owlbears. What do I know?
Right.
But if it fits the story, I mean, I know DMs that would have allowed it to. Well, normally I wouldn't, but it fits
exactly. We're holding we're holding the movie to a higher standard than we hold our own games. Yeah.
So.
Is the main character a bard? Is that the whole thing? Like they're basically making fun of bards for not being effective?
Well, pretty much. Is he really a bard? I don't even know if he's really a fucking bard. He has an instrument. He likes to make plans. Personally, I see him more as a thief class.
Got it.
And listen, I've played with players that, well, my character's a non-combatant. What do you mean character's a non-combatant? Oh, he's going to avoid all combat if absolutely necessary. He's only got, he's second level. He's only got 4 hit points. I am not getting into combat.
Absolutely, yeah.
That is Chris Pine's character. Okay, that's how I saw it. So I wasn't offended by it. People are like, well, Rodriguez as a female barbarian, well, she kicks ass. She kicks ass until you see the Paladin really fight, and then you're like, all right, she's a brawler.
Right.
That's fine. I thought the character that to me was the weakest was the sorcerer. First off, I never really liked sorcerers for the idea that they didn't have to memorize their spells. They just kind of woke up with them in the morning. But they throw the Easter egg in. Spoiler alert, folks. Spoiler alert. That his ancestor is Mordenkainen.
Oh, that's awesome.
But that's world shifting because
Greyhawk, yeah.
But do the characters all progress over the course of the movie? Yes. The bard Chris Pine's character is basically a fallen god. What are they in the Forgotten Realms? Harper. So is he?
Oh, okay.
Well, he's and then the Paladin tells him in the end, like, there's no such thing as an ex-Harper. Want a Harper, always a Harper. Right. So as opposed to being motivated by money or good, it looks like if they do a follow-up movie, Chris Pine's going to be a bit more neutral good as opposed to, I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool that they tied in the Harpers. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Harpers are tied in. They tied in a lot of little stuff. They already teased it in one of the coming attractions. They teased the cartoon characters as another adventuring party.
I saw them in a trailer. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was interesting, and I think that the other adventuring group is supposed to be the iconic 5e characters.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
I was told that. I didn't catch it because
Right.
my 3 ebooks haven't been opened in, I don't know, 5, 6, 7, 10 years. I have no idea. They've been sitting on the shelf for so long. But I left there having a good time. And it was the first movie that I actually went to a theater to see a movie since 2018, 2019. So it's prior to the worldwide pandemic. So we just made the decision that, we can watch it on a big screen TV at home. There's not much that we want to go out and see. And then this one, I was like, oh, well, look at that. It's go a private screening. Sure, let's do it. And then we'll probably go see John Wick 4.
I just saw John Wick 4, and it was really fun.
Yeah. So now, again, if you're looking for the perfect D&D movie, I don't know what that is, because perfect D&D movies are going to be different for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It's going to just like the perfect game session is different for everybody. Do you like sandboxes?
Yeah.
Do you like episodic play? How do you like your gaming? Well, it's kind of like, how do you like your D&D movies? I didn't like the first 2, 3. I'm not even sure how many they put out. I stopped after the second. There could have been a third. I don't know. I know the last one. I know the second one broke the video, but they were embarrassments.
Yeah, they weren't very good.
So this wasn't embarrassing, and it really. I left the theater going, hey, I spent what, I don't know, $14.50 a ticket, and popcorn and a soda between us. So I probably spent like close to $50, and I didn't feel robbed.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's all you can ask for, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my feeling. So
all my actual plays are actually going to be for ACKS 2, and they're going to be on my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com @Alexander Macris.
I have the link. I have the power. Let me get that up.
Yeah, you can see. Just got my first 2 episodes uploaded.
Nice.
I don't know how you do a video a day. I'm just doing a video a week, and it feels like a ton of work.
Well, this is. I know how I am, so I know what keeps me in a rhythm. So
Right.
Even when I was working, I used to put up 2 to 4 blog posts a day. Upon retirement, somehow I had less time in retirement than I did when I was working. Don't ask me how that happened. But then once I started doing a podcast, and I was like, the podcast became daily, I was like, 1 blog post, 1 cast, 1 YouTube video or whatever.
Right.
And then Sundays on my blog, I have Chris Stoghill as my permanent guest poster on Sundays. It gives me a day off on that. But I just know with me, if I don't have that rhythm, like I try to put out a newsletter with all these YouTube channels that are about gaming that are friends of mine, and I mean to get it out once a week, and it's turned into like once a month. But if I was doing it on a daily basis, it would probably be out 30 days out of 30. I just need that daily rhythm to my stuff. Sometimes it's rough because, and Rachel joke, it's like, hey, we're hanging out tonight. Tuesday nights are like bar night with our friends.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, she's like, do you have a video ready? I'm like, oh, shit. Well, I'll tell her we're going to be late because you got to get your video up. I'm like, okay. Because you can't get it up afterwards. You're not going to be home in time.
Well, that's very supportive of her, though. I mean, that's a good wife right there.
Oh, she's awesome. She's the one that got me into blogging in the first place. And,
right. That's
when
awesome.
we were dating, I had just gotten back into gaming. I was playing on Fantasy Grounds, and it was a Saturday night group initially because everybody's off.
Yeah.
And we would be hanging out Saturday, and she's like, "All right, you gotta take me home now." She lives in the Bronx. I live out in Queens. I go, "I can take you home now." She goes, "You got a game at 7:30." She's like, "You'd be lucky to make it back on time." I'm like, "Where the hell did you come from? How did I get you?"
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
She wouldn't agree to a fantasy styled wedding though, but I wasn't going to push it. I threw the. I was like, hey, we could do a fantasy style. No, I'm like, okay. I was like, just gonna throw it out there.
My wife is a goth, so we did our wedding. We went to New Orleans and got married on Halloween night in the cemetery by a priestess.
Oh, jeez.
So like,
damn.
Full on goth central wedding, which was pretty fun though.
That's pretty cool. We got married our local Catholic church, and then we had it at our local pub. Sadly, it closed this past October. But we got married on November 5th, so they still had all the Halloween art up.
Yep.
All painted on the windows and all that stuff. So there were wedding photos, and you have like ghouls and goblins behind my wedding guests in the wedding photos.
That's awesome.
So I was like, that worked out okay.
Yeah.
So now, when are we going to be seeing ACKS? Not 2. Well, when are we going to see the new release of ACKS?
Yeah. So right now, my King tier patrons on my Patreon have access to the ACKS Imperial imprint. It's written in Word document format right now, so sort of art-free. It's being proofed, but it's basically done. It's playable, and I'm going to be starting a campaign with it next week. And I've already run one playtest campaign with it when I was developing about 50 sessions. So my expectation is I'm going to probably do a sneak preview of that on my Patreon for everybody in May. And then the Kickstarter itself will be in July. And then the Kickstarter will be for the ACKS Imperial imprint plus the ACKS Judge's Journal and the ACKS Monstrous Manual. So it'll be the 3-book set. You can buy just the core book if you're a player, or you buy all 3 if you're a judge. And everyone will get the drafts as soon as the Kickstarter completes. They'll get the Word drafts. And then it'll probably, it takes about a year to do all the art and layout and everything. Right. But I think by July, people will be playing ACKS 2 who want to. Yeah.
That's awesome. Again, I had a lot of fun running ACKS because it felt familiar. It had a lot of options to it. And we've actually stolen your, after battle flipping over the dead mechanic.
Oh yeah. So that was actually Tavis Allison's idea. He had that concept, and he just sat down one day and he drew this little chart and was like, we should include this in the game. And then I expanded it into the tampering with mortality for when you raise the dead, you also have to roll for weird shit to happen, and it became one of the most beloved mechanics in the game. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So we've used that in other OSR rule set. Again, if you're an old school, game master, you're probably whatever you're running, you're probably not really running. You're probably running a.
That's true. Everybody, yeah.
A mongrelization of like 7 or 8 different game systems in the end.
Because it's actually been a problem for me in getting feedback on ACKS 2 because I'll send out a new draft, and then somebody who's been a fan for years will be like, I can't believe you changed this new thing you've changed. But then I'll go look, and I didn't change it. Like, it's the exact same rule as it was in ACKS 1. And he's like, oh, I guess I never just read that section, and I was using the BX.
I was just filling in the blanks myself.
And so, I had this slow dawning realization that no one who plays ACKS actually plays ACKS. They play ACKS-ish games that are somewhat related to what I've written. But you just got to embrace it. So,
well, that was kind of like Gary Gygax, right? Even when he ran AD&D, he didn't really run AD&D. He ran
something
Gary's home set of rules that had little to do with anything that was published.
Yeah. Did you ever get to play with him or Dave Arneson?
No. Gary and I, we conversed on EN World, and then I forget, I was asking him some question, and my avatar was Chief Wiggins from The Simpsons, and my quote was coppers and crawlers, and he was just like, man, he goes, not too many people know about crawlers these days. Like, oh yeah, I was like, and it was like, and we spoke briefly. He's like, well, if you're ever out in Lake Geneva, he goes, just swing by the house. We're gaming most nights. I was like,
Wow.
I've gotten out to GaryCon a few times. I've driven by the house now, but that was, I wasn't even actively gaming at the time. I was actively lurking when I could because,
right.
Most gamers I know have that period of time where they stopped gaming and then they came back, and it seemed even better upon return. But
yeah. So I never got to play or really chat with either Gary or Dave, but I did have a really funny incident with Dave Arneson. So my nephew at the time was maybe 8-10 years old. He lives in Minneapolis. My brother's a Minneapolis-based computer programmer, and so they go to the Source a lot, which is of course where Dave Arneson's lives, and so he goes to the Source sometimes, before he passed.
Right.
And so anyway, so one day, I get this cute little voice chat message with my nephew, and he's like, "Oh, hey, we went to the Source today, and I learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Who taught you?" He's like, "Some old wizard guy named Dave. He signed my book."
Oh my God.
I'm like, "Show me this book." He shows me, and there's Dave Arneson, and I'm like looking at my brother. I'm like, did he literally just get introduced to the Dungeons and Dragons game by Dave Arneson? My brother's like, "Sorry, you weren't there."
That is sweet, man.
So close to greatness.
Well, how many degrees of separation?
Just one. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and then Frank Metzer I met on Dragon's Foot. And I made a joke, and he didn't like it. And he never spoke to me again. He said something about BECMI, and I responded, and I was just being funny. I was like, "I don't know who you think you are, but you don't know anything about BECMI."
Oh.
Holy crap! He took it so personally. I was like, "Oh no."
Frank has the distinction of being one of a handful of people that threatened me with a lawsuit.
Really?
Oh yeah, and I actually knew Frank. I was to the point where Frank felt comfortable coming up to me to pitch ideas and to let me know about projects so he could get it covered on my blog, and I'd be like, okay. And do you remember his Kickstarter?
No, I don't. What was his Kickstarter?
Okay. He was Empira, something like that.
Okay.
So it was his world. But the hook was Gary wrote a personal note saying that his world was located in the world of Greyhawk. So this was the hook. And he kickstarted it with a goal of $250,000.
Mm.
And a huge list of conspirators, co-creators.
Yeah.
But no artwork to show and no samples to show. And the reality was, because I talked to people that were named, and everybody was pretty much on the I will get involved when the money's there.
Yeah.
So it wound up being a canceled Kickstarter. He pulled the plug before funding would have ended because funding was getting nowhere near it.
Yeah.
And Frank was taking a lot of that stuff personal. And but then Frank decided that he was going to. He sent out a link to the backers. Now it's a backer, and it was a link to a new website where he was going to be doing this next project. So I was like, "Oh, good news! Hey, all right, it's a link." I share the link. Threatened me with legal action for sharing an open link that wasn't password.
Wow.
I was like, Frank, he sent me the PM to threaten me, and I'm like, Frank, it's a web link.
Right.
I'm not giving anybody access to anything that's behind the any kind of password wall or anything like that. It didn't make a difference. And then I think he realized his foolishness, and then he apologized to me publicly without naming me.
Mm. Yeah.
So now Frank's had so much crap go on with him. I wish him luck. It is not easy. I know he got divorced, so God bless him.
Yeah.
But a lot of the old timers, you just got to hang out. Like Merle Rasmussen is a wonder. Top secret.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Merle. I've sat down. I spoke with him. Dennis Astaire, Swordbearer, Bunny from Burroughs. Dennis is. We sat down at North Texas one time until 3:30 in the morning, Texas time. I'm like, Dennis, I got to go to bed. It's 4:30 New York time. I can't stay up. I'm gonna fall asleep. But he had all the energy. The guy's in his 80s.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Have you ever met David Zeb Cook?
I've met him. Not well. Here, my first time meeting Zeb Cook was first time meeting Jeff Grubb. And I always loved Jeff Grubb's work. So we're at North Texas. I think this is the second year at North Texas. And Rachel and I are about to get into the elevator, not realizing we turned a corner. The elevator doors had just closed. So I hit the button, and the elevator never got a chance to go up. Doors open up, and it's Zeb and Jeff Grubb. And Jeff sees my name tag, and he goes, "Oh shit, you're Tenkar." And I froze. Did the honeymooners deal? The humana. Elevator doors closed. It went up, and Rachel's like, "What the fuck just happened?" She's like, "I've never seen you be like that with anybody." I go, "That was Jeff Grubb." She goes, "I thought everybody does that like around Frank Messer." I go, "I don't care about Frank. That's Jeff Grubb."
Oh, that's awesome.
And he goes, and he knew who I was.
That's
And
awesome.
I've seen him at other conventions, and he'll see me at a convention. He'll be walking by, and he'll look at me, and he'll just the biggest smile because he still remembers my stupidity that time. But yeah, I've met a lot of the old timers.
Glenn, did you say you met Zeb?
Glenn, you're muted. You're muted. Can't hear you, Glenn. No wonder you can talk quiet.
We can't hear you.
You're no.
No.
Nothing, Glenn. Huh? You got it? Nope.
No.
Do I got it? Do I got it?
There it is. Yeah.
You're giving me a heart attack.
Yeah, there it is.
Sorry.
So
I met Zeb Cook. I met Steve Winter.
He's awesome.
Like the third year, I walked up to them with a pile of second edition books that they are involved in. And I turned to Zeb and Steve and said, "Could you guys sign these?" There was like 10 books. And I felt so guilty. We stayed up all night and I bought them drinks all night.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. I got the Steve Marsh and Zeb Cook signed my BX stuff.
Awesome.
Yeah, Steve is the nicest, one of the nicest guys in gaming. I swear to God.
Every year I say on Thaco's Hammer, it says, "Any of you guys want anything signed? Send it to me. I'll get it signed." Corey sent me his BX. "Can you get this signed?" I said, "Sure." I got them to sign it. I also got Errol Otis to sign the covers. I sent it back to him. He says, "I want your baby." I said, "No, thank you, but you're welcome."
There you go.
So,
now who didn't we mention? Tim Kask.
Mr. Kask.
Mr. Kask. However you imagine Tim Kask to be, you're probably not imagining enough. Tim is larger than life.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He plays curmudgeon.
Yeah.
But he does it well. And
Yes, he does.
He had one guy in one of his games tell him that he didn't know how to DM. Not the thing to tell Tim Kask.
Oh shit.
Oh.
You don't know what you're doing. I don't know what I'm doing.
I know exactly what I'm doing. Getting rid of you.
Wow.
Killing off your character.
But that's the reason why, like, I love North Texas RPG Con. It's about 400 to 500 people, but you get the same number of special guests as going to Gamehole or GaryCon with, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 times the number of people. So you go to the bar, you get to hang out with, it's like I know you from somewhere, and it's like, oh well, yeah, it's like.
Has Gary gotten that big?
Let me tell you.
Go ahead.
Let me tell you a story. Second year, North Texas, they had a seminar with Zeb and Steve about 2E. And I was with Vince. And we were sitting there, and Bad Mike comes up to us and says, could you guys I don't know there's hardly anybody. Can you guys ask some questions? Oh, man, that was like catnip to Vince. He's the guy who came out and said, hey, on these Splat books, were any of these builds play tested?
No.
And they had to admit, at first, yeah. But then as it got further and further, no.
That's how you got spell singers and stuff like that. But
that's right.
GaryCon, I think, had 3,000 people this past year.
Oh, wow.
I think Gamehole is looking at 4,500.
Wow, it's really grown. I mean, when I went to GaryCon, maybe the second year they did it, it was a couple hundred folks.
Oh yeah, no. GaryCon is at the old Playboy Estates out there, the Playboy Mansion. So so it's literally outgrowing its venue. I don't think it's got.
Wow.
They're gonna either have to start capping attendance, or like North Texas has to cap their attendance about 500 for their venue, and they're not looking to get much beyond that.
Right.
But GaryCon is a bucket list thing. If you hadn't gone, I would definitely go. Gamehole is run with that German precision.
Right.
So Alex Macri runs it like a very strict German, and everything runs like clockwork.
By the way, Bad Mike's on here. He's asking, when is Alex going to head over to North Texas RPG Con in June?
I don't do very many cons. Ever since I got canceled a few years ago, I guess I've been kind of a social recluse. I just stay at home.
You got canceled?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
All of it. So, yeah, it was not a good show.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I apologize for that. I don't know why, but I do.
I just I kind of turned me into a social recluse. So I should get back out there and start doing cons, especially with ACKS 2 coming up. So I'll try and figure out how to do that. I used to go, and I used to really love them.
I'll be honest with you. I think North Texas there's actually this ShireCon to SmallCon up in Connecticut in the fall.
Thank you, Zach.
Not so non-political. It's amazing, but North Texas is totally non-political. Of course, it's the same place where people were calling up the con, calling up the hotel. Like, do you allow guns at your conventions? They're like, this is Texas. It's like we can't not allow guns.
Right. Yeah. Open carry state, right?
Yeah. It's like, it's like, oh, well, then I'm not going to the con. It's like, all right, then you're not going to the con. Whatever.
Well, we do have we do have a few political people there, but they check it at the door so we can all play.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll say I've gone to GaryCon and gotten involved in political discussions I didn't really feel I needed to be part of. North Texas, and I've been going to North Texas now, I think 10 years, and it's never cropped up. It's never been an issue. It's a beautiful thing. And yes, some of the most political people on both extremes.
Jeff D.
I was going to name, but they understand that they're there. If they are a known personality, they're there to make money, and you're not going to make money by pissing people off. So,
yeah.
Okay.
It's funny you said Jeff D. Jeff D. actually is remarkable as the first human being I ever blocked on social media.
Really?
Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zach.
It was literally after we had worked together on Dormer Mount, and he did art, and just one day he went off on me and was just dropping F-bombs. I was so taken aback, and I just kept trying to have a reasonable conversation. It was impossible. So I said, "Look, you're going to be the first person I ever block."
Well, he also understands he wants to make money there too. So he
Yeah,
keeps it
no,
in
of course.
check.
Yeah.
But, look, people are different in person than they are online, right? Like there's something about social media that just turns
Internet
people into sociopaths.
Come on, we've all seen that shit. Thank you, Zach, Mr. Macris deserves far more acclaim for ACKS and it's sent in some of the best designed products of the last decade.
Well, thank you. That's very nice of you. Welcome to come and hang out. I will try and make it out there. Keep it at the door or do not come. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up?
And if
How's it going, man?
Yeah, who let the Canadian in? Eh?
Yeah, and if you come to North Texas and you happen to see a certain person running a gangbusters game, come on by.
Oh, are you run gangbusters?
Every year.
So my friend Brian Renninger is absolutely convinced that Gangbusters is one of the best tabletop games ever designed and is like an unappreciated masterpiece. He's about it all the time.
Oh, I'm sure Mr. Hunt will be glad to hear that. Mark Hunt redesigned it for BX.
Really?
And he's got Gangbusters BX. In fact, he's going to be there this year. And he'll run that and probably Tall Tales, which is his BX Western game.
Oh, nice.
And so, that's just a couple of incentives I'm giving you to come.
Nice.
Yeah, Mike.
Are you based in Texas? You and Bad Mike?
I am in Oklahoma.
Oklahoma, okay.
But Bad Mike's in Texas.
Oklahoma.
He's just outside of.
I'm like a 3-hour drive away from the con. So
right, which in Texas terms is like right next door.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mike's right. There's a lot of law enforcement that shows up, and they are all carrying. So it might be one of the safest cons you ever attended. My first North Texas, I was approached by somebody who read my blog. It was a big hulking guy with a real Southern twang.
Right.
And he explained that he had played football for the Dallas Cowboys for I think 2 seasons.
Right.
It wasn't a starter. And then he left that and he joined the FBI. But he goes, but I read your blog and I like to hear about all these dumb motherfuckers. I was like, would this be Ken Whitman? What are you talking about? He's like, there's a number of dumb motherfuckers, but holy shit. I was like, wow, okay.
Well, hey, listen, my wife just woke up, so I probably need to go help her with some stuff.
No problem. We're about to wrap up time anyway. So, Alex, thank you.
Hey,
thanks for coming. Appreciate it. Come by. Someone always welcome.
You're always welcome. Come back when you've got the new ACKS coming out. We're glad to have you. Listen, you can't cancel me. They've tried. I'm retired. Go fuck it.
It's a good place to be, man. It's a good.
Yeah,
place.
it really is. Even before that, I really.
And I'm small potatoes. Nobody takes a shot at me.
Well, and even if they did, Glenn's a big guy. He makes me look like a dwarf. Glenn's tall. He's got the reach.
Also an old guy.
He's got a very formidable voice. Like I feel like if I had his voice,
I did a Kickstarter video for who's the guy, Mr. Mistara.
You mean Bruce Hurd?
Yeah, Bruce Hurd. I did one for Bruce Hurd for one of his Kaladar books.
Yeah, you absolutely have a voice actor voice. You could.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's really solid.
Thank you.
Well, folks, thank you for the exceptional chat. You've all been great. Thanks to those that put money into our coffer today, Zach and Joe. Of course, they're friends, so I guess they felt obligated for some stupid reason. You guys weren't, but thank you. Alex, again, thank you. You're always welcome. Glenn, get you back in the saddle. I'm sorry you were muted, man. I'm glad we fixed that.
Well, yeah, so am I. I'll plug Thaco's Hammer, which is coming back soon, and
Glenn, you got to tell me when it's back.
and Radio Grognard King Size, which is 3 days a week. So
Nice.
There you go. All right. So, folks, I will include links to both Alex's YouTube channel and to the current Kickstarter as a pinned comment after this wraps up. All right. Thank you much. Be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. Roll them well. I'll be back again.
bye, folks.
Tomorrow, live stream with myself and my wife, Rach. We're going to do Gamers Health. Of course, it's a Saturday night. And we're still trying to get a list together for the Gamers Heart Health Special.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right, folks. Laters.